Tony, I'm going to hand it over to you, and let's get started.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, everyone, for joining today. As Jim said, my name is Tony Pistilli. I'm the Director of Valuation Services for the Accurate Group, which includes ValueNet. Many of you have probably heard the name ValueNet. We're going to talk a little bit at the end of the presentation about ValueNet and some of the fun things that we're doing here. But really, this is about desktop appraisals in general. We'll touch a little bit on what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac recently rolled out. Want to start with a poll question. And it's really just to kind of gauge your interest in doing desktop appraisals. It is aptly titled Yes, No, Maybe. And that's because I think a lot of people either are all in, they're not in at all, or they really don't know, and they're like in that maybe camp. So we'll go through the slides that I have prepared here. We'll talk a little bit about, well, number one, some of the changes that we've experienced in the last 10, 15 years around appraising in general, around life in general, some of the technology changes. We'll look at some of the appraisal related changes, look at some of the risks that are perceived or real around desktop appraisals. We'll talk about USPAP, everyone's favorite subject, a little bit. And throughout the webinar, I want this to be as interactive as possible. It's unfortunate we're all not in one room in Hawaii. I heard Jim say someone from Hawaii or Abilene, Texas. That would be a little warmer than where it is today. I'm today in Chicago. But there's a chat box on the side of the screen. Hopefully y'all can see that. If you have any questions at all, I'm able to see that. Jim is able to see that. We can stop at any time and ask questions along the way. Make it as interactive as possible. I want you all to get as much out of this as you can. So we're starting with the first question. Jim, has everyone had a chance, do you think, to respond?
We've got about 250 people that have responded to the poll so far. And so far, we got about 50% say maybe, 40% say yes, and 10% say no. So I'll close this poll so it opens up to everybody's screen and they can see those results.
Well, that's fantastic. So everyone, 90% of us are maybe or better. That's, to me, that's an open mind. That's all that we can ask for coming into this webinar is have an open mind and discuss and find out more about what a desktop appraisal is. And probably should have had a question also, how many of you have done a desktop appraisal before, but we'll assume that everyone knows what it is. If not, we can talk through that as we go through the webinar as well. Wanted to start with a picture. We're not seeing that, are we, Jim, on the screen? Oh, it's coming in. It's two engines. One of them is a 1970 Oldsmobile Cutlass, and one's a 2020 Toyota Prius hybrid. Now, we can all see the differences here, right? And the technology changes in the last 50 years have been amazing around automobiles. And part of that is the advent or the addition of computers into automobiles. And I can guarantee you that our mechanics that used to work on these cars, Frank on the left, that's the guy that probably worked on the 1970 Oldsmobile Cutlass, very mechanical, very greasy, very old-fashioned. And then you see Bob on the right side. Bob's got white gloves on. He's got computers. They're still automobiles, but these guys are operating much differently, right? And I want you to think, do you want to be Frank or do you want to be Bob? As we go through this webinar, I think we'll have a choice as appraisers. And we'll be able to choose if we want to continue to focus on what I think is Frank's expertise from an appraiser perspective, the traditional 1004. And I'm not ever going to suggest that they're going to go away, because there still are probably 1970 Oldsmobile Cutlasses on the road. There's just not as many of them. And I really do think there's going to be fewer and fewer over the next few years, traditional appraisals, and we're going to migrate into a realm or a world of desktop appraisals, or, Bob's area of expertise. So as we go through here, do we want to be Frank or Bob? And we'll look at some of the other things that have changed over the last few years. Remember, as we started our profession or our careers, I remember having a shoebox full of film in the back seat of the car. And every time I went out to a new house, I would open up a new roll of film, put in the 35 millimeter camera, and start taking pictures. Well, Canon and Nikon don't even make 35 millimeter film cameras anymore. And you look at how some of these things have changed. Remember making the only way that you could make a travel arrangement was to go to a travel agency. But now today we have digital cameras on our phones. More pictures are taken by an iPhone than any other camera in the world. We never go, or rarely go, to a travel agency. We make our travel arrangements online. This industry has really changed our life. Same thing with newspapers. I saw a newspaper in the lobby of the hotel, and I picked it up. It was really thin. There was very little news on it. The majority of our news, I would bet, comes from online sources. Same things with books. On the airplane coming out here to Chicago, I saw more people reading from their handheld devices than from a book. I have to admit, I'm kind of a book guy. Much rather hold a book. I'd much rather hold a newspaper. But these times have really changed the way we do things. How many of you remember the progression of technology from 33.5 LP albums to 8 tracks, reel-to-reel cassettes, MP3, and even that now is outdated. We're getting streaming audio on our phones. It's really been a progression along the way in technology. How many remember mailing appraisals? I mean, I do. And I remember racing to get to the post office and putting, back then, I can't even remember what the value of the stamp was, but it was probably about $3 or $4, depending on how much you mailed at one time, trying to get to the post office before they closed, right? Or how many remember receiving your assignments on a fax machine? And remember how the thermal paper would kind of curl up as it got to the end, and the blue streak would be on the middle of the paper. Hated that when that happened. And after a few months or a year, all the printing on the fax paper would kind of disappear. So if you ever had to refer to the appraisal again, it just wasn't a very good copy. We kind of talked a little bit about the technology around cameras. This lower right-hand image, actually I started on Polaroid film, but that bottom right image is a Kodak digital camera way back in the day. And I think it was black and white only. It held maybe 12 images, and the files were huge. But gosh, how we've progressed. And for some of us really old timers that started on carbon paper FHA appraisal forms, you could actually complete your appraisal in pencil and use whiteout. It's come a long ways, right? I think we can all agree to that. So all of those changes, did it really make us any more efficient? It probably reduced some of our costs, but did it really reduce turn time all that much? Maybe. We don't have to go to the photo store anymore and wait for our pictures to get developed. And I know it took me a long time to type an appraisal. And then if you made a mistake, either you're starting over again or you're putting in the whiteout, or now with appraisal software, a lot of it is a lot more efficient. But we're still doing things the same way, really. And I think some people would argue that it's even taking us as long as it did. This could have been a poll question, but I'll fill in the blank for y'all. And I think we would all agree that we were doing more appraisals in a day 10 years ago for whatever reason, scope creep or overlays from lenders or AMCs, compared to how many we do today. And let's say we do half as many today. And if we can all agree that we do 1 to 1.5 a day, maybe 1 a day, because of the time it takes to just complete the appraisal, right? All the research, everything that goes into it, even though we have some of those efficiencies through technology. And if we do the math, and I have a purpose behind this, I want everyone to understand that we really should be looking at how we do things on an hourly basis, a lot like an attorney, an accountant, anyone else that bills themselves out on an hourly basis. If you, as an appraiser last year, let's say you made $100,000 a year. Well, if you look at it as an hourly wage, you might say in another way, I made $50 an hour. If you made $200,000 a year, you do the quick math, you're making $200 an hour. So as an appraiser doing traditional appraisals, if your average fee is somewhere between $400 and $500, and I'm just using these numbers, I don't know what your fees are or really how long it takes you. Let's focus on this bottom number. Our average hourly income is probably somewhere between $50 and $75 an hour. That's $100,000 to $150,000 a year. Some of you may be making more, some less. Out of that, we have expenses and everything else, right? So that's, today, that's where we are today. That's traditional appraisals. What do we get paid for? What don't we get paid for? Driving comparables, measuring houses, typing appraisals, doing revisions. These are all things that maybe don't go at our core competency or what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis, doing appraisals. What should be, in my mind, what should we be getting paid for? Definitely using our local market expertise, analyzing data, identifying market trends, communicating the results. That means, putting our comments in the appraisal, writing our narratives and our addendums, really providing the expertise, right? So these last two slides really kind of lead up to this one. What if we had someone else going out in the field doing all that driving of the comparables, or even if comparables weren't necessary, original comparable photos, someone going out to the property, making the scheduling the appointment, doing all the field work that takes so much of our time, and then we're the appraiser on the right hand of this equation, or the field inspector, either one. You can choose to do whatever you want to do, but let's focus on us being the appraiser. Someone else is doing that field work for us. We get all the assignments given to us with all the information necessary to complete. We provide the analysis, the local market expertise, identify the market trends, and then we communicate the results. That's really kind of focusing on our highest and best use and what we do best. Similar to these professions, how many have been to the dentist recently? The hygienist will be in your mouth for 20, 30 minutes, maybe longer, and the dentist comes in for 2 or 3 minutes, checks everything out. Who do you think in that relationship makes more money? But it's bifurcating the process, similar to nurses and doctors, paralegals and attorney. There's a lot of research done by paralegals, all very important. And then it's examined, reviewed, and refined by the attorneys. I think appraisers can be in a very similar position, and we're gearing up to be in that position based on what's available today from the agencies and from companies like ValueNet and others that do proprietary desktop appraisals. So about 5 years ago, we started hearing about changes that were on the horizon, and Fannie Mae in their selling guide announced that they'll allow an unlicensed, whatever that means, or uncertified appraiser to complete the property inspection. It was kind of the first shot over the bow, shall we say, about bifurcating the process. And that was, an unlicensed or uncertified appraiser. To me, that could be, almost anyone, or an appraiser trainee. It could also mean another appraiser. I think it goes without saying someone else could go out to the property, but an appraiser could sign on the right and accept the information. We see that when we train appraisers today. You can put in the assignment that someone provided significant assistance, and we'll talk a little bit about that going forward. But this really was the first message in the selling guide from Fannie Mae that someone else could do the field work and do the inspection. And this was 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, the then CEO of Fannie Mae said, we're focused on reducing appraisal turnaround times. And they're going to start pilot valuation programs. Now, those have been ongoing for a period of time. The CEO continued in this article that we're not interested in eliminating appraisals or appraisers, but we should be exploring options electronically. And that bolded area, appraisers should be at their desks. I fully agree with that. We shouldn't be in the field measuring, making phone calls, tracking down homeowners. So yeah, I think there's some good thoughts here. And again, this was 5 years ago. This fast forward, this is about maybe 9 months ago. Now director of FHFA, but then acting director Sandra Thomas made a significant announcement at the MBA conference that both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will allow appraisals to be conducted remotely using public records, listings, tax appraisals, starting in early 2022. That has started, and we're now experiencing this. Fast forward again to January 19th. That was the date that this option went live in the selling guide with Fannie Mae. Freddie Mac announced that a couple of days up to a week or so sooner. It went live on March 19th for Fannie Mae. It was announced on January 19th. So we have about 2 months of history behind us. The desktop appraisal is a viable option on 1004s. Along with that announcement came some information available to appraisers and lenders, and want you to all focus on that middle square there. Again, this is an appraiser that conducts analysis and develops an opinion of value at the desk using information that's available at the desk. A lot of AMCs and lenders have combined a physical inspection, although in this announcement, a physical inspection is not necessary. It must include a floor plan with interior walls. And the rationale there is that we want to be able to understand and identify any functional obsolescence. And as a result of that bullet, the third bullet down there, I think a lot of your assignments, if you have done quote unquote a desktop, it's really more of a hybrid because there is an inspection. Someone else is going out to the house to do that floor plan, but it's because the floor plan with interior walls is required. Some of you may be seeing MLS listings with floor plans in them, and it's nice that they're in there, and it makes the desktop appraisal possible because it does have that floor plan. Fannie Mae goes on by saying if the appraiser does not have sufficient information to complete a credible appraisal, they must refuse the assignment. This is a very important topic, and we're going to talk a little bit about this in the remainder of the webinar. Data provided by parties with a financial interest in the sale or financing of subject property must be verified. We'll talk a little bit about that. And the appraiser must have sufficient information to develop a credible report. That's always been the case, but since we're at a desk or relying on someone else's information, we'll talk more about what that is and what your obligations as an appraiser are in those situations. There's some frequently asked questions that were released at the same time related to desktops. And I have a couple of highlighted ones here. Number 3, does a certification 10 allow appraiser to accept information about the transaction from someone with a financial interest? Up until now, we've always, I think, been inclined to say no. We have to, be arm's length. We have to do it ourselves. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are allowing us to do that. Number 4, the difference between a floor plan and a sketch. A floor plan shows the interior walls. And again, that's to understand the functional obsolescence. We'll talk a little bit more about number 3 here, what's necessary to verify that information that's accepted by an interested party. But it's important just to get out on the table right now. It's okay to accept information from an interested party going forward. Homeowner provided photos require verification. Photos can be verified using MLS listings or with a live virtual walkthrough with the homeowner. A lot of the inspection technology, and we'll look at some actual examples in the remainder of the webinar about information that we can get, that we can have a lot of confidence, even though they're being supplied by a third party that isn't us or isn't another appraiser. If you can't verify any of the information, you should take the necessary steps to verify all of the information. And again, if you can't verify all of the information, or if you can't get enough information to feel comfortable, Advisory Opinion 2 in USPAP lays out what we need to do, and we need to turn down that assignment. This also comes from the Fannie Mae announcement. These are some of the reasons that they're identifying to advocate for the desktop or hybrid appraisal. And I'll allow you to read them here. If you haven't, as an appraiser, heard about appraisal bias, I think you're going to. Separating the appraiser from the house or the site, receiving information away from that physical inspection may give us some advantages as far as appraisal bias is concerned. So what's the difference between what an inspector provides versus what an appraiser provides in this bifurcated process? On the left, you'll see that the inspector provides an inspection report, typically. And again, this is what we're seeing today, kind of a quasi-hybrid desktop approach. But in a true bifurcated appraisal or a hybrid appraisal that ValueNet provides, you'll see an inspector go out to the property, do either an interior and exterior inspection of the property, collect some of the necessary information about the house in addition to photos. Pretty much everything that the appraiser would do if the appraiser was out at the house. From that, the appraiser would provide the supplemental information, the maps, and then all of the more quantitative and qualitative information, like we talked about, the narrative information, the analysis, the market trends, of course, the opinion of value, the commentary that's necessary in the appraisal. So in USPAP, some appraisers may say, well, I don't have confidence in someone else doing the inspection, or I really need to do an inspection. In USPAP, there is no requirement for an appraiser to do an inspection of a property. Think about doing an appraisal on new construction. Yeah, we go out and look at the site, but we receive information from a third party, an architect, the building plans, or the builder, the survey. We could go out and do a drive-by 2055, but not see the inside, get our information about the inside condition from another source. USPAP allows us to get our information about the relevant characteristics of the subject from a combination of different sources. We do not. There's no requirement in USPAP that we go inside the property to do an inspection before we do an appraisal. And here we see that in very bold letters here. USPAP has no requirement to inspect the subject property's interior. During the beginning of the pandemic, the Appraisal Foundation issued a clarification to everyone in the appraisal industry that there is no requirement for appraisers to go inside the property. So this was in USPAP already, and it was reinforced by this advisory letter that came out from the Appraisal Foundation in 2020. So if we accept information from a third party, someone other than ourselves, what does USPAP say about accepting significant professional assistance? USPAP doesn't have a specific definition around what significant appraisal assistance is. However, it does provide some examples of what that might be. Selection of comparables, research on comparables, forecasting income, those types of things in the appraisal process. Appraisal reporting. As an appraiser, if you rely on information from a non-appraiser, there are reporting requirements that you would have to put into the appraisal. Can I do appraisals like this when I do not inspect the property? Again, an appraiser may use any combination of property inspection, plan, specification. You get the idea here. You can rely on any combination of information to develop the relevant characteristics. So it's not necessary, want to really drive that home, that it's not necessary to go inside the property to do that appraisal. And you can rely on someone else's. Now, what happens if you do not get enough information, or the information that you get isn't really good? So an appraiser must not allow assignment conditions to limit the scope of work to a degree that the assignment results are not credible. If your client says, I want you to do a desktop appraisal, but you get information or pictures like the top two here, you'll have to modify the assignment conditions, right? And say, I'm unable because the scope of work requires that I do not inspect, or these photos are not good enough. If you get an inspection where the photos are blurry, you have to say, no, I can't do this, or I need better photos, or I need more information, or there's not enough information from a combination of different sources that I can develop property characteristics. You can also use an extraordinary assumption if a credible assignment result can still be developed. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do not allow that. So you have to understand the interior condition, either through photographs or a personal inspection. But when you're doing a desktop or a hybrid appraisal, you're probably not going to be inside that property. So you need to rely on that data collector or the information provided to you in the inspection. Here's some other examples of, information that might not be good enough. Is that inspection or floor plan or sketch on the left good enough? Probably not. This is an example of something I would, as an appraiser from the desk, I would say, no, that's not good enough. It's not good enough to see someone's thumb over the picture, right? Or a blurry picture on the bottom right, or a picture of the sun on the upper right, or a blurry picture in the upper left. These are all examples of things I would say, I'm not comfortable with this. I can't do this. I need to turn this assignment down, or you need to provide me with better information, or is that information available somewhere else? Is there a better, more credible floor plan that I can rely on in the MLS in this instance? Maybe there is. Maybe you don't have to turn it down. Maybe you get the information from another source. Now, conversely, if you get a floor plan like either one of these, I think these are fantastic. Probably better than any of us on the call could do ourselves, right? This sketch or floor plan on the left looks so professional that it looks maybe like an architect did it, like it came from building plans. And there may be reasons why this is really accurate, and I have no qualms about accepting either one of these to base my determination of functional obsolescence or square footage off of. This is an example of a 3D tour that also provides a 2D floor plan. So this technology that's available today enables us as appraisers to kind of walk through, quote unquote, walk through the house. And you can see in the inset over here where it says main floor, what we're looking at and where you are in the house, and you see the little icons inside the picture. You can click on those just like we do on Google Earth and go through the house. If you were able to do this, to me, that's as good or better than being in the house ourselves. This would be a permanent record. You could take your photographs or a screenshot to put in the appraisal of the different rooms, and away you go. You want to look more closely at a wall or up at the ceiling. All of this moves around, and it's a fantastic substitute for actually being in the house. Same thing here. You see the floor plan and the ability to go through. There's a video, a lot of really good stuff based on technology. Kind of how we started the conversation early on in the webinar. We saw the progression of technology. This wasn't available a couple of years ago to us as appraisers, but I think with an open mind and understanding what's available through USPAP, what's available to us through the agencies and doing appraisals, I could get really comfortable with this kind of a 3D dollhouse view or a 2D floor plan. A lot of times better than what we can do ourselves. To me, this gives us at a glance a view of that property. This technology right here will allow us to get down on the floor, so to speak, and walk through just like the other one. But you can also get a bigger, like you almost take the roof off, right, and see all of it. All of this furniture is captured through video, and it's just like being in the house. But obviously, if this is given to us, we're not at the house. But would this substitute? I think so. There's also technology that's emerging that will allow people from the outside take pictures of the house from the outside and this is used in other trades in building and roofing, siding, but you can also see that it captures a square footage. So from the outside, the other earlier photos that we saw were all from the inside, but this is from the outside. So for exterior inspections, I would have a lot of confidence. I've used this on my house, and it's remarkably accurate. And it to me, it really would provide a lot of confidence in the inspection process. I haven't seen any questions yet in the chat. I'll pause right now if anyone has any questions. But we talked a lot about the inspection process, getting information from third parties, some of the technology that's becoming available, that's emerging onto the scene.
Yeah. Tony, if you click the new tab under the Q&A tab, new, all the questions should be there. One of the biggest questions we're seeing is, how is an appraiser liable if somebody, does a bad job with the square footage, the inspector? Like, how does that affect the appraiser's liability?
Yeah, I'm having trouble, Jim. The new tab under the
Q&A.
Okay, I see Q&A.
And then under that,
there we go. Just had to. Holy cow! I'm so sorry. There's like 100 questions here. Just got to know the technology, right? So, well, okay. So at a very high level, these are our appraisals. If you don't have a credible source, if you have some reason to believe that the information being provided to you is incredible, you can't use that in your report. Like I said before, we need to understand who's providing that information to us. And it's okay that it's a party related to the transaction. That can be a realtor, it can be a homeowner. That's okay. But we need to verify that information, just like we do information in the MLS or any other data source that we get, right? So we're ultimately responsible. However, if you have reasonable basis to believe that the information is accurate, you've done your due diligence, you're acting like any of your peers would, I don't think you have any liability in that someone else is inherently going to the property and providing you the information. Now, you can't rely on blurry photos, inaccurate floor plans, incomplete floor plans. All of us would agree, right, that that's just not acceptable. I do see that there's some questions about ANSI, and that would be a good time now to talk about that. For the purposes of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on the desktop appraisals, ANSI is not a requirement, and that's in the frequently asked questions that are available on the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac websites. You'll want to go to both of them. There's different questions on either site, but ANSI is not necessary for the desktop appraisals. Some of the names of the 3D and 2D. This right here that we're looking at is Hover. This is outside. Others are QB Casa, CUBICASA. One of them was Envision, I believe. And I may be getting that mixed up with some others. Matterport was another. If you just Google 3D, 2D home floor plans, you'll come up with a lot of these that we just looked at. Any other general questions, Jim, that we might be able to touch on? A couple of them, vendors.
One of them was on the trainees, and they said, well, if trainees are only doing these type of appraisals, how will they get the knowledge of the market by not going around and seeing these houses face to face?
Well, that's a good question. So for the inspection portion, I don't know that it's necessary that our data collectors or inspectors, whatever you want to call them, have that geographic competency or knowledge of the market or the area. And I think there's actually an argument to be made that that's the value that we as appraisers bring to that process, much like the dentist and the hygienist in that relationship. The hygienist serves a portion of that process, but really the dentist takes full responsibility for everything that was done. And the dentist may apply some additional experience or expertise into that process, just like the attorney does in the attorney and paralegal or the nurse and doctor relationship. There's ways that we can find external obsolescence, right? We can utilize aerial imagery, things that weren't available 10, 15, 20 years ago that are emerging today that allow us to do things from the desk in a much more confident manner. So I don't know that it's really necessary to have someone that's out at the property has that geographic competency or knowledge of the market. I also saw what do you get paid for these? I have no idea. But I would, as far as customary and reasonable fees, think about what you made last year as an appraiser and how much do you want to make per hour? Because this is going to be a much different dynamic. You're not going to be driving to the house. You're not going to be measuring. You're not going to be making appointments. How many times have you heard a homeowner say, well, I work during the day, so you'll have to come out after dinner? Well, we work during the day too as appraisers. We count on daylight hours. You have to schedule and be at places that are convenient to people getting in the house. All of that goes away. All of the comparable photos goes away. So think about what it is that you do on a order by order basis at the desk and what you do out in the field and how much you want to get paid per hour going forward. That's how, I don't know what the right fee is. You have to determine that for yourself. So let's carry on. I do know how to work the chat now, and I see that. I apologize for that. And we'll see that going forward. Someone just said, so half of today's fee. Again, I don't know what the right fee is. You'll have to figure that out. But I think one way to figure that out, how long are you putting into that effort? How long does it take you to complete it? And I'll tell you what, if you're making $100 and it takes an hour to do these, and we'll get to some of the real efficiencies at the end of the webinar, if it takes you an hour to do these and you're getting paid $100 an hour, that's about $200,000 a year. That should be enough for an appraiser, in my mind. And no gas, no expense, or very nominal expense. No desktop software, or maybe you do, but you don't utilize it for a lot of the proprietary hybrids or desktops. So there's some different dynamics, and you have to consider all of that when you're doing appraisals at the desk rather than out in the field. So geographic competency, that's a really good topic. It's a really good discussion point. We're going to spend a little bit talking about it. And geographic competency really means different things in different areas. On the far left here, you see Hennepin County. That's where Minneapolis is. And obviously, if you live in Hennepin County, where I did when I lived in Minneapolis, I did appraisals in Anoka County quite often. Now, when I lived in Minnesota, I didn't go to Duluth, like the middle slide. That might require a different level of competency. I wouldn't suggest that at all. Now, if you go to the next slide on the far right, I lived in Minneapolis. I used to live in Denver, and I now live in Texas, in Dallas, or in Colleyville, to be specific. I could still, if someone said, well, where is 4309 Edinbrook Terrace? I would understand where that was. I would know the neighborhood. And with some, brushing up and some really good data sources, I would understand the dynamics in that market well enough, I believe, to be geographically competent. Now, could I go to Florida? I've been to Florida, but I've never done appraisals there. I wouldn't consider myself geographically competent to do an appraisal. What does USPAP say about the competency rule? I have a lot to say. That you have to be competent to perform the assignment, acquire the necessary competency, or decline or withdraw. So at the desk, you're going to get assignments that may be a little bit further out. You have to be very aware as the appraiser that you're the one completing the assignment, and you have to be competent when you're completing the assignment. In the case of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you don't get the opportunity to become competent. You have to be competent at the time of the assignment. Competency includes the ability to properly identify the problem. So have the knowledge and experience to complete the assignment competently and recognize the laws and regulations. Now, if you've never done an FHA appraisal, are you going to be competent if you know nothing about the requirements in the handbook for FHA appraisals? Probably not. So you need to understand all of the laws, the regulations, the property style, everything before you begin that appraisal. Competency can be acquired in a number of different ways. You can study personally. You can the MLS or data. You can associate with an appraiser. You can partner up. You could also partner with someone else that is very competent in that area and do a team approach. That bottom bullet is really important in an assignment where geographic competency is necessary, like an appraisal. An appraiser who is not familiar with the relevant market characteristics must acquire an understanding necessary to produce credible assignment results for the specific property and market involved. So property type, if you've never done a berm home, a dome home, any kind of unique property, you have to gain that competency in the market where that property or location is in. You should not do that property or that assignment if you're not going to be able to become competent. This is a huge issue that we all need to be aware of and understand while we do these desktop assignments. Any questions come through about competency? Want to hit on that before we move on, because I think this is one of the real big things. We talked a lot about acquiring information from third parties. I hope it was clear that we need to be accepting of that information from a third party, but also verify that information can be validated, or we need to validate it, and it can be validated by third parties. We can accept information from online sources, a number of different sources to get all of that information. We also have to be competent or become competent. some of these systems, and we're going to talk about this with the ValueNet modernization process. We're going to be providing data and information through technology. And we're doing this today for our 1004 and 70H and D products. An appraiser would log into an online form on our ValueNet platform, and you'll see an order page similar to this. And you'll click on review property. This is your order. It'll pull up what we call a preview page. And all of this is at a glance. The appraiser is going to see all this. The picture on the left here is the MLS. You probably can't see it, but there's a little arrow, just like we're intuitively adjusted for on like Trulia and Realtor.com, Zillow. You can click through and see all the interior photos. You can come over into the middle. This is the inspection data photos. You can click through this. From this, you can see, oh yeah, they were at the right house. I'm getting credible information. Remember, you had to verify that inspection data through MLS, or that's one source. We allow you to do that right from the start here. You can click through and see that. We also, up on the top gray bar here, we give you the source data, the MLS listing sheet, and the review, the inspection report itself. On the inspection report is going to be the data collector, the inspector's name, phone number, contact information. If you have questions, you can call them and get the information. You're also going to see a map here that toggles back and forth between street and satellite. You'll be able to see, remember, someone asked about the market knowledge of the person doing the inspection. You're going to be able to see if the property is at the corner of a busy street, but maybe the data collector didn't take a picture of the busy street. We'll provide you with that information. You'll be able to make a determination at this screen, the fee for the assignment and whether or not you want to accept it. If you accept it, you go up here at the next button, and you're going to be brought to a landing page where you're going to filter MLS. MLS data from your data provider is going to be put into the form. Imagine an airplane pilot looking at a cockpit with all kinds of information and data. We're going to provide you with all of that. So you had the listing information, the MLS, the inspection data, maps, all kinds of salient information about the subject. You come here and you can start, just like you do in your own MLS, filtering the data based on the subject. And all of these knobs and dials are controlled by you. It's important, and we're only talking about ValueNet here. This is our proprietary desktop. All of the information is going to be at your control. We never populate anything that isn't factual, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. But this is your MLS determination. So based on the information here, you're going to go in just like you normally do with your own MLS, but this is online. Make your adjustments, filter everything down. You're going to come up with a farm list, or a list of comparables that are ranked by proximity. And you see that over here. All of these are going to be searchable and sortable. So if you want to sort by sales date, by proximity, by lot size, any of the other features here, you're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to hover over these and find the pictures. Important feature here on the far left, you can click on the number one. And if you like 7181 Meadow Lane in Cleveland and you want that one to be your number one comparable, that's how you do it. You want this one to be number two, number three. You get all your comparables. You want listings, we'll be able to do that. You can put in as many listings and sales as you want. You'll be able to hover over on a map also. The subject is here, but if you hover over on number two, this pulls up this picture. You get all the information. At a later phase or release, we're going to give you the opportunity to be able to right click and add this comparable right from the screen, from the map. You'll be able to see the proximity to some of the neighborhood features, where the other comparables are. and populate the grid. When you hit next, all of the factual, like I said, all the factual information is going to be into the form right now. You'll see the address. So there's virtually no typing of legal description, lot size, year built, a lot of the information on the front. And again, we're talking about the 1004H and the 70H form and the 1004D and the 70D. All of this is pre-populated. You go in, fill in the blanks. You're going to want to fill in the verification information. There might be some other things that are not a part of the MLS data or the public records data. Again, we don't do anything. We don't pre-populate anything that isn't factual data. So none of that gets put into the appraisal. We give you the ability to wipe out any of this data if you don't like it. If you know different, if you've been in comparable number 1, 7181 Meadow, and you know that I don't know, square footage or lot size is wrong in the MLS, we give you the ability to back out of it and put in your own information. But anything that's in the MLS, anything that you would normally type into the appraisal report is going to be pre-populated. And that, again, that comes from the inspection data, the MLS data, public record data. But the appraiser always, and I spent a lot of time on this because I really want to stress, the appraiser always is in control of this appraisal, and we never do anything, comparable selection, adjustments, anything that would do anything that the appraiser doesn't have full control over. You see on the left here, we have screens. You can click on this much like a PDF and get to the comp photo page. All of this is going to be pre-populated. You're going to have your addendum, everything else be a part of this. So that was the 1004 70H. That's already in production. We can do that today. We can provide those efficiencies to appraisers today. What we're talking about on this screen is our ValueNet appraisals. We do anywhere between 25 and 30,000 proprietary desktop appraisals a month. We have some of the largest lenders in the country from a variety of different uses, whether it be origination, home equity, REO, whatever the need for an appraisal is. We provide, again, just a ton of these appraisals a month. We're constantly looking for appraisers in all markets. So we took all of the efficiencies from that prior modernization of the 1004 and 70 forms and are putting this into the ValueNet forms. We have 26 different proprietary forms. As of June 1st, we're going to be code complete. What that means is that all the developers are going to be done doing the development on the forms. We're going to go into user testing the next 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, and we're going to hopefully roll this out to everyone, our staff appraisers on ValueNet. Right now, we do have staff appraisers. We're looking for more staff appraisers. We have a very competitive staff appraiser program. If you're interested in being a staff appraiser, email us afterwards. Happy to get people in touch with you. But we're also going to be rolling this out to our panel of fee appraisers so that you can enjoy the same benefits as you would on our 1004 forms, on our proprietary forms. Any questions on any of this? I know we're going kind of fast, and I haven't, Jim. I apologize. I haven't been keeping up on the comment.
I sent the pop-up offer. There was a lot of people that asked how they could try these out. I sent the pop-up offer. It's also now pinned to the top of your chat. That'll let you click that link and join their team if you're interested in that. Some of the other questions, we had some people asking about the time difference. He said on your example, the garage on the left and the garage on the right are not the same. There seems to be a time difference. I guess that one, yeah.
Yeah, so that's correct. The one on the left is the MLS photo. Sun's out, there's no snow. It's Cleveland. The one in the middle, that's a more contemporaneous. That's the data collector, the inspector photo. And there's 28 photos. You can see the little icon here, 28 photos. And if you went up here to the top, review inspection report, the entire source document pops up for your review. We give you access to all the data. These two pictures are taken at different times, but I think from these two pictures, you can verify that it's the same property. I did catch that the garage door looks a little different. It might be just because it's, different color. It might be that the shading is different. The sun's not out. It's taken at a little different angle, but you can see, same window, same door. To me, this is the same house. I accept that. Maybe I want to open them both up and take a deeper look, but everything looks to be similar, right?
So we had a lot of questions about the real estate agents getting the correct dimensions and square footage.
Yeah.
So somebody said in Michigan they're not required to do that, or they won't do that.
I don't know about state by state, but again, that gets back to these slides, right? It's up to us, the appraisers. If I got this floor plan or sketch, whatever you want to call it, it's probably on the back of a napkin, right? I would say, that's not credible. I don't trust that. I'm not going with that. Now, if I got this would be pretty accurate. I would assume that this is pretty accurate. I would want to verify. And there's more to this. There's dimensions and exterior, you could do your own math on this. Certainly on this one, these are credible. I would want to verify that against my own public records, MLS. And if it's within reason, I don't know what reason is, but that's up to the appraiser to determine. To me, if it's under 100 square feet, under 75, 50 square feet, yeah, I can accept that as being verification and validation that floor plan is accurate. I can tell you this, and I used to be chief appraiser at US Bank. I've been a chief appraiser at many AMCs. A lot of times different lenders will have requirements where multiple appraisals are required on the same property. I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, if we were to send out two appraisers to the same property, unless it was a 3-bedroom rambler, if it was any type of complex property, we would come back with two different measurements. It wouldn't be 1,000 square feet. It would be different. It might be 100 square feet different. It might be 50 square feet different. But any kind of complexity or something that's not a square or a rectangle, you're going to get some differences. So we do have to have due diligence. We do need to, do our part. But that's really the dentist, right? Not the hygienist. Do you trust that the hygienist did a good job? Sure.
So we had this question has popped up a lot too. So some people have dipped their toe in it and accepted a hybrid order, but then they haven't been able to get a floor plan. So what do you do in situations like that? Do you engage your own software? What would you do in an example like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So right now it is desktops. But like I said, because of the requirement to understand that there's a requirement for a floor plan, and that's to understand the functional obsolescence. If you can get an assessor's card, or even in the assessor's office where I lived in Minnesota, newer houses, they were scanning in the floor plans from the builder. If you had access to that, another source, you could do that. If it's in the MLS, you can do that. But like I said, a lot of the AMCs, a lot of the lenders are sending out an inspector, a data collector with this technology that we saw to get the floor plan for the appraisers. So they're kind of leapfrogging over the whole desktop terminology and getting into hybrid right away. Hybrid is coming next year from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Hybrid is already here in ValueNet. Like I said, we do 20 to 30,000 of these a month. Let's just say 25,000 a month, all over the country, every area.
So we have some questions if people can apply to their panel. We saw that. They also want to know if they can become an inspector and do that side of it too.
Yes, absolutely. A little different process, but if you were to fill out the form that pops up at the top of your screen, join the ValueNet team, and just in the comments say, I want to be an inspector, we can get that over to our people on the, we have another company called Groundworks that is owned by the Accurate Group. And if you go to the Groundworks site, you can sign up similar to what you can on ValueNet. But if you click on the ValueNet, join ValueNet team today, we'll get you over there as well. Another question I did see.
ValueNet and Groundworks will both be at Valuation Expo side-by-side booths, so you can go and sign up for both too if you want.
and I would encourage everyone to come to Valuation Expo if you haven't been there. It's one of the, if not the best experience or conference for appraisers. And Jim, where is it this year? It's at a really nice hotel, right?
We're at the Mirage Hotel. We're really excited about that. It's a $77 a night room rate, so that's even better.
Not bad to spend a few nights in Las Vegas and get 15 hours of continuing education out of the way at the same time. And these are classes and continuing education that you're not going to get from any other provider. I'm a USPAP instructor and I teach for McKissick, but these classes that you'll get at Valuation Expo are done by, the chief appraiser at Wells Fargo, people at Zillow, people that you don't normally hear from, and you're getting that at Valuation Expo. So I did see another question. If you're on the Accurate panel or you're on the ValueNet panel, unfortunately, no, they're two separate panels because they're two very different products. Click on the top of the chat, fill that out, and you will get a call back.
We have a question. Are you allowed to ask for the copy of the home inspection report of the subject property if you're doing one of these?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to be inside the house, but if it is a sale.
I think if it's a sale, if they're asking for the home inspector's report that was already done.
Sure. Just like you would, if you're a traditional appraisal, you have the advantage of getting in the house and talking to the homeowner. It might be there. You might ask. You could see it. Absolutely. Now, most of the time, I can tell you these aren't our ValueNet. The ones that we do 25,000 of a month. Those are not typically for purchases. It's a home equity. It's a refinance. It's a mortgage insurance reduction. There's something else going on besides origination. The 1004D and H that's coming out next year, the 1004H, definitely for originations for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. There may very well be a home inspection done. All right, let's go on. Just a few slides. So I bring all this up in the first, 50 slides because to me, this is extra opportunities. If you were an attorney and you only did divorces, you'd be leaving out wills, estates, all kinds of other opportunities, right? This is just one more tool in our toolbox as far as appraisers are concerned. So any of you that said no or maybe, hopefully this opened up your mind to new opportunities. I think it was clear from a USPAP perspective, we can do this, but there's things we need to be aware of. USPAP is our friend. It shouldn't be that USPAP doesn't allow us to do this. USPAP is very enabling. USPAP allows us to do a lot of things that we haven't considered. We can put a lot of tools in our toolbox, and if we're looking at per hour, how much we make per hour, I guarantee you're going to make a lot more money doing alternative valuations, doing desktop appraisals, really utilizing all of your expertise and experience continue to do all the traditional appraisals you want, but you should also you could do inspection, the data collection portion of these, as well as the appraisal portion. We didn't spend a lot of time on that, but there's all kinds of opportunities. I think this is a fantastic thing. I think this change is good. And I think this is a new era in appraising. And you know what? Look at some of these missed opportunities in the world. Just think if Decca Records hadn't turned down the Beatles in 1962. Anyone remember what the label was? Apple, I think it was. M&M said no to ET. That was Reese's Pieces. There's some really big missed opportunities here. And I don't want anyone to have, anyone to say 10 years from now, gosh, I should have done desktop appraisals, right? So to me, it's a real big opportunity. We should at least be in that maybe camp, not in the no camp. We should keep our eyes open. We should be more like Bob on the right than Frank on the left, right? And
Tony, I'm sending out the poll again.
Yeah. So really interesting to see if from the beginning of the webinar, an hour and 3 minutes ago until right now, if it's changed your mind or, anything spurred your interest. Hopefully it did. You don't have to say yes today. You don't ever have to say yes. But if you say no, I think you're going to miss out on some opportunities. There's other companies besides ValueNet that do desktops. There's going to be a lot more interest from major lenders, banks, and mortgage companies in the desktop and hybrid appraisals as we continue. All this new technology that we talked about early on, not everyone had the first iPhone when it came out, but there's a lot of people that have iPhones today. So, just keep an open mind. Become informed, more informed if you're not informed at all. Information is good. Jim, have we completed all the questions?
Yeah. Yep. We let me double check.
And all the surveys, the answers, responses, yes, no, maybe.
Yeah. So the updated poll. Let me. It's open right now. I'm closing the poll. So we actually increased our percentage that said they would do it. 57% now said that they would do it. 36% are still maybes, and we're down to 7%. So you converted one person from a no to a maybe. But we got a lot of those maybes up to yeses. So that's
all right.
Job well done.
All right. Well, it really wasn't my. I guess it was. Truth be told, we need appraisers at ValueNet. We have more orders than we do appraisers. We're making a lot of changes. We think it's really a good environment. From an appraiser perspective, I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't click on that icon that Jim's showing. And even just if you have an open mind, learn more about what USPAP says about doing different things. Understand what our hourly rate should be as an appraiser and what other kind of appraisal services, appraisals can we do as appraisers? What other tools can we put in our toolbox? How can we make more money? That's why I show up every day. I mean, if I didn't need money, I always tease my dad. If I had his money, I could throw my money away and I wouldn't have to show up at work every day. So that's all I have. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar. If any of you have any questions after the fact, please reach out and let me know. Jim, if there's anything afterwards that we can circulate to the individuals, or if we have access to all the webinar participants, we can follow up. We can provide you with an opportunity to contact us, ask additional questions, anything at all. Happy to be here
Tony,
for you.
I can give you the attendee list, and then you can maybe send them your PowerPoint or something along those if they want to review that. But we definitely appreciate everyone joining us today. It went quickly, but we appreciate all your support and joining us for this. If you want to join, you can click the link at the top. The live recording will be available in about an hour to two after it's done processing. That'll automatically get emailed to everybody that's registered. So if you have any questions, reach out to Tony and his team or email comments@appraisalbuzz.com, and we'd be happy to get you in touch and get your questions answered. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Bye now.